the coach. His name was Dustin Felder, because remember, it was an acting class I had never done. So he was like, stand-up comedy is your into the industry.
Of all the teachers, I said the one guy that really made an impact that was palpable and tangible and gave me a different outlook was Bill Hall.
My dad, he's been in law enforcement for over 20 years. He taught like the 4 rules of gun safety.
It was always the meth, but like right out of the gate, it was Carter and Keith Hernandez. Those were the guys.
I just want to say thank you. I've been watching you since I was a kid. Like I watched the Chappelle Show, and we would recite that shit all the time.
It surprised me how much I enjoyed. I coached my daughter's softball team this year. It was one of the best times of my life.
I dedicated this to Angela because I would not have done any of the stuff that I've been doing had it not been for her.
What's up? Welcome to episode 156 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choi. For more about this show, please check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. Please subscribe on YouTube. That's definitely appreciated. At People We Love Podcast on Instagram. At Adam Choi is me. If you'd like to follow me, adamchoi.com for everything else that I'm working on. Today we have Long Island's own Angelo Veltri. Growing up a Yankees fan, baseball was a big part of Angelo's life. His parents, Arlene and Peter, were both dedicated police officers and are loving parents. Angelo's journey has led him to an interest in law, to helicopter school, and eventually to a career in politics. First with Young Americans for Liberty, and now with the National Association for Gun Rights. He also founded Save Long Island, a pro-liberty organization created to defend the constitutional rights of his community. This man just loves Long Island and cares very deeply about the place and its people. So let's just get started. Here's Angelo Veltri. Okay, so it's good to see you today, Angelo Veltri. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Oh, for sure. How are you holding up during whatever year this is?
It's going by. It's an election year. It's fun.
Oh yeah, it's only going to get crazier and crazier. We can get into some of that stuff, I'm sure. Where are you, first of all?
I am on Long Island, New York, on the island, not in it.
Right. Does anyone ever say in Long Island, on Long Island? It's definitely on.
People that aren't from here or Manhattan elitists that come out here and they go, "Oh, I'm in Long Island for the weekend."
Right.
No, you're not 6 feet under. You're not buried in a cemetery. You're not in the island.
I think I lost a lot of my Long Island credibility. I am almost said in Long Island. I almost have to like think about it a little bit, but it comes out my Long Island. Obviously, I've been, like I was saying earlier before we started recording, that I grew up on Long Island, but haven't been there in about a couple of decades or so now, living on the West Coast. But yeah, we can get into your background and your history. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up on Long Island?
I grew up on Long Island my whole life until I was about 21, 22. And then I was traveling around with an organization, Young Americans for Liberty. So I was in Kentucky, Alabama, or not Alabama, actually. I've never been to there. Kentucky, Georgia, Illinois, a few other states, like lived a month in each place. And then was living in Austin, Texas for a year last year.
Nice. So yeah, that's cool that you got a chance to travel. What town did you grow up on Long Island?
So the town is Brookhaven, but more locally, it's Shoreham, Wading River area. Nice place, crazy drivers, stuff like that.
Crazy drivers, a little bit further out east than where I grew up. What about your family? You have siblings and all that stuff?
No siblings. I'm luckily an only child, so I was spoiled my whole life. And both my parents were police officers. So my dad actually retired when I was born and was a stay-at-home dad while my mom kept working. He's got about 17 years on her, so bit of an age gap, but he was ready to settle down and start taking care of me. So I'm happy that he was able to make that sacrifice, I guess you could say, and be able to be there with me.
Yeah, it's almost like both of your parents, I'm just guessing it's like there's pros and cons to both of what one's got to work, but maybe one wants to work, one has to be home, but maybe one, prefers to work, but there's a good side of not working and of course, raising a kid too.
And it was weird too, because like my mother would have, they always bid on their shifts with the police department. So she would get some years where it was nights, some years where it was days. So like there would be, sometimes where I didn't see her for like weeks on end when I was younger. And then, other times where she was always around. So it always varied, but we made it work, and I'm at this point now, so I guess I turned out somewhat okay.
Oh, for sure. What are your parents' names?
Arlene and Peter.
Nice. When did you realize that you were spoiled? That's like
I don't know. It's just been a thing throughout my life. Like, all the stuff that I've had, I've never had to share with anybody and stuff like that. But, they still instilled those values in me. So I am a well-rounded person, I guess you could say, if I could toot my own horn like that. But, it was just, throughout life, if I asked, I got it, and it was nice. But I still got that hard work instilled in me.
Yeah, it's interesting because to think of it like there's no competition for all, not just like physical material things, but also just like your parents' attention or sometimes the attention of others.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing, around here, at least I had some friends in my neighborhood, but everything out here is, even a friend that's 5 minutes away by a car ride, that could take a half an hour on foot. And with the way the world is today and having to police parents, they're not going to let me walk a half an hour down main roads to get to my friend's house. So it was a little in between. You had to set up the play dates when we were like really young and stuff like that. But we made it work, and I'm happy with it.
That's funny because I moved from it makes me think how I lived in East Meadow from birth till first grade, and then moved to Dix Hills and Suffolk County. And as we move out east, the houses and neighborhoods the houses get further apart. It's just becomes even more suburban, even more rural and spread out in a lot of ways. And that definitely shapes one's experience. It could be isolating and challenging in a lot of ways. I'm guessing.
Yeah, at points it was. I mean, I get the opposite effect of that. Like when I go toward the city, that I'm like, oh, the houses are starting to get more, structured and lines and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting close.
That would be an interesting like time lapse kind of video, driving from all the way out east and seeing how people are living further apart. And then eventually you're in a New York City, Manhattan, people living in these sardine boxes, like a one shot video that shows like the way people live as you drive.
$3,000 a month to live in a shoebox. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. What kind of kid were you? What were you like into in like elementary school age?
I mean, my whole life, I played baseball from like, a very young age. I did karate for like 8 years when I was younger. They tried getting me involved in a bunch of different things, sports mainly, to, pique my interest, see what I'm good at. And baseball was always the thing that was there. I actually still play to this day in a men's league. So it's fun thing on Sundays, but sports was definitely big growing up, and Yankees fans here, stuff like that. So
yeah, I was about to say we have some things in common, and then you said you were a Yankees fan, and that changed the entire trajectory of the conversation. Now I'm a Mets fan, of course, but yeah, we definitely have some similarities there with being into baseball and all. What's the name of the league you playing? Because I played a little bit into my adulthood. I don't play it right now.
I think it's called the Stan Musial League. So they have it's an 18 and up league. Anybody can join. My team it's all kids around my age. We played in like the town of Brookhaven leagues and the younger ones, but now it's we're playing against 40, 50-year-olds, even some teams. So, but they compete. So I mean they play hard, and there's a lot of words going back and forth through the dugout sometimes.
Yeah, people get into it. I'm sure it's fun to play. If you can play. Is that a wood bat league?
Yeah, wood bat.
I
And the
think
thing is too,
I
they
remember that.
they'll like, everybody's working during the week. These people have worked their job for 20, 30 years now, and they're getting pissed off. And then on the weekends, they just get to let it out on some 20-something-year-olds on a baseball field.
Yeah, it's well, in some ways that isn't that healthier than drinking too much on a Friday or so. You do that too.
Oh,
Why not do both?
yeah, I mean, they whatever they want to do, that's on them. But I don't care. It's all game to me. I mean, back in the like town of Brookhaven days when I was like in high school and stuff, playing travel ball, there were like my teams would get into fights and stuff, but I was always the guy like pulling people out of the crowd, like, no, we're not doing this. This isn't like, we're just going to get kicked out of the facility now. Like there's not, I got to tell a story 20 years from now that I had a fight back in the day. Get over yourself.
Who are your favorite Yankees? 'Cause I think I'm guessing you grew up in a pretty good era for Yankees, or you remember the time when they were winning.
I was a core four baby. So Derek Jeter, Andy Pettit, Mariano Rivera, Jorge Posada, those were my guys. But I guess you could say my idol in baseball was always Mark Teixeira. He got me really invested in it. I played first base because of him. So like he was a main driver in me. And I remember going to his like meet and greet signing thing. I think it was at Roosevelt Field Mall or one of the malls. And that was like that's one of the experiences that even to this day, like I don't idolize people like that anymore or anything, but like he's a cool dude. I really like him.
I do remember him being one of the more likable Yankees. I'm not just saying that, but I do like, didn't he win like the Roberto Clemente Award? Maybe I'm making that up. Like the Man of the Year, where you combine the talent and the service, or he's nominated.
Maybe, yeah. He's been nominated for a few things, but he was always great. I think he was actually, because Ben Rice the other day, I was actually at the game where he hit the 3 home runs in the game. First time in Yankees history that a rookie did that. And I think the only other person to get like 3 home runs in a game, one of them was Mark Teixeira. So it's cool having him as like a staple now within the Yankees organization and stuff. So I like looking back on those days.
I remember he's from the Maryland, Baltimore area, and the Orioles were trying to sign him, and he ended up going to the Yankees, maybe probably for more money or play with a better team, maybe.
When you get a deal from the Yankees, the Yankee 27-time world champ, they're the baseball team. I would say. I mean, I'm their fan, so this is heavily biased.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine why people give Yankees fans a hard time, and then the other 30-ish whatever teams that they're not,
Yeah.
Don't have.
Well, the thing is, we always throw the 27 World Series at everybody's faces, and they're like, "Yeah, but the last time you won was 2009."
Yeah. I'll take a 2009 for the Mets. It's been a minute. It's been a few decades. Hey, at least they made the World Series. I don't want to go too much into baseball stuff, but I am a big baseball fan. But it's kind of fascinating that the Mariners have never even been to the World Series. I think they're the only team that hasn't been to the World Series. There's something especially tragic and sad a little bit about that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, my only I still watch baseball. I still pay attention to it. I like going to the games more than like sitting down and watching them, especially, I'm just busy all the time. So I don't really have the time to do it. But the times that I will get invested is when I have like $20 to throw into DraftKings. And I'm like, all right, let me do a little bit today. Why not have some fun with it?
My level of attention is, well, that could be sometimes level of attention too, is the putting wagers on it, but it's how good the Mets are doing. The Mets are doing good. I'm more likely to pay attention and actually watch pitches and pay more attention rather than it being in the background or just like the radio audio or just checking the score. I have a whole hierarchy, a whole system of how much I'm going to pay attention to the Mets, because when they're bad, it's like, why am I going to pay attention to this if they're terrible? There's so many better and more productive things I could be doing with my life. I'm going to dedicate more of my attention. But the day is a little bit better when the Mets win. I'm guessing a little bit better when on days when the Yankees win too, and it's a
Oh.
little bit worse when they lose.
Yeah, recently the past few weeks I've been looking at the MLB scores coming up, and I'm like, every inning it's just oh, this one hit a home run, and now they're losing 3-1 and 5-1 now and 7-1. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm done paying attention.
It's a long season for sure. What about going into like middle school, just continuing to play sports? What kind of student were you, I guess, at that point?
I throughout all of school, I was a pretty good student. I mean, I don't remember middle school that much, but I know high school I graduated with like a 94 average or something like that. But the main contributor to that was probably my mother, especially after she retired. She was like, more on me with the schooling and making sure I'm getting everything done. I guess I could say, like, again, not to toot my own horn, but like I was kind of naturally smart. Like I would just pick things up and learn them on my own. But I always hated sitting down doing homework, and I did not like homework at all. That was my least favorite activity ever in my life. Even just thinking back, I haven't talked about homework in so long, and it gives me like the
no.
chill.
I didn't mind going to school. I didn't mind learning. I didn't even mind doing some work, but having to do it outside of the school, I did not like, and I didn't really like tests or quizzes and all that stuff. Either very much.
That always influenced like that. All of those experiences of like the homework and the going to school, like looking back at my experience with it, is sort of formulated into a lot of my political opinions around education and stuff now. And I mean, that's everybody's personal experiences shapes their political ideas. But at the same time, it's like, I've lived it, I've went through it, and I think we can do a little bit better with it.
Public schooling is, I think, objectively not designed to cultivate a student's curiosity and to develop useful skills in the real world.
No, it was created to make workers. It was during the assembly line period that we started getting into a lot of this stuff, and it was made to create workers, not entrepreneurs, not people who are free thinkers able to go out and produce and build society. And I feel like that's why over the past few decades and even recently, like people are like, society's crumbling. It's like, why do you think?
Yeah, it's almost like any actual education that comes out of the public system. I feel like it's like purely coincidental or a byproduct of like engaged parents to some degree, or just a community that has some money. So as a result, you're going to have some resources, but the whole system is a giant mess. What about speaking of public school, what about high school? What were we like then and getting into and up
High
to?
school was fun. I mean, I played golf actually too in high school. That's when I started getting into that. So I would do golf during the fall and then baseball during the spring. But I wasn't that good at golf. And there was at one point my teacher, he was actually my former 6th grade teacher who was the head golf coach of the high school team. And in my senior year, because he let me play in junior year, and then senior year more kids tried out and all this. So he like pulled me off the side. He's like, hey, bud, like, I love you. I loved having you as a student. Like, you're a great guy. I just, and I literally turned to him and I just go, Zamek, come on, man. I get it. You have a team. Like you need to win. I get that. Like, this is your job. So like, I take zero offense to you wanting to cut me. Like, I know I suck. I shot 180 on 9 holes one day. Like, that's horrible. Or 120 on 9 holes, whatever it was.
That's funny. Yeah. Where did you well, I want to ask, like, you can answer whichever maybe makes sense to answer first. Like, what was it like growing up with cops for parents? Because the public can obviously have a very mixed, sometimes estranged, sometimes fond, depending on who you talk to, relationship with the police. It's very complicated, the public and police, and depends on the community. And how did that like evolve over the years, even growing up and getting more into your teens?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really affect me when I was younger. It was just, I feel like a lot of the jobs out here, like it's just a stereotype. It's either, you live on Long Island, you're either a cop, a nurse, or a firefighter, or something else.
Doesn't everywhere need those people?
Yeah, yes, but there's like a heavy influx, and then it's either one of those or like union, electrician, plumber, whatever. Like there's no like nuance or in between of
Long
anything.
Island Railroad employee.
Yeah, well, that's what they were.
You-
They were MTA police, so they were dealing with the railroads. My dad was in Penn for a while. My mother would be in like Garden City or like out in Queens, Central Islip. So they didn't. Their job was more keeping track of the trains rather than like the highways and crime and stuff like that. But there was one point where my mother actually stopped one of those. Back in the day, they were stealing like the copper from the railroad tracks and stuff and selling it, obviously just make money off of it. And she ended up catching two of those guys and got them arrested. So, they did good work. It's just my view on policing has definitely changed, and I won't get into their stories that they've told me, but some of their stories have shaped my opinions on police a little bit, where I'm like, there's reasons that we have rules and laws about what cops can and can't do. So it didn't affect me back then. It was just, they had like any other job. It didn't matter to me. I didn't hold it in a high regard, but also that's because they never really taught me to hold it in such a high regard. But at the same time, they were great parents. That's all that I cared about back then. Going into my later years, obviously, a little bit more nuance in what their job was and how they handled everything. That sort of changed. But, end of the day, I still love them.
What about your friends? Do you remember them thinking a certain way about your parents being cops? Was it like, oh, let them, like, can they get us out of jail, or are they going to send us to jail? Was it either of those?
Yeah, it was more the latter than the former, but no, same thing with them. Like nobody really thought about it like that, and it especially, I guess, too, because of the specialization of their job, that they were the quote unquote trained police, that it wasn't as divisive. They were, one of the main things, or something that I've heard my mom talk a lot about, was like the suicides at the train tracks, where she would have to go and like, people jump in front of the trains and have to deal with that. So they weren't a like there's a lot of problems with the NYPD nowadays, or LAPD, I'm sure, or just any other police department, but they weren't really caught up in all that. And they were sort of doing it in the early 2000s, before a lot of this cop hatred and politicization of the police started really fermenting. So.
And also, I'm guessing your friends, and other people were meeting your parents and seeing them not so much in the context of them working either. So they're seeing them more as human beings, and it's funny. Funny is not the right word, but it's important, I guess, to think about that. Like,
and I'm sure, like, you or even some of the viewers like got pulled over at some point and had the cop like, waving their finger at them or whatever, acting stern. But at the end of the day, they're all human. Like they all want to go to a weekend barbecue during the summer and have a few beers and grill burgers and bullshit with their friends. Like, they're people at the end of the day.
We're more than just our jobs and our job titles and what we do 9 to 5, and we're more than our immutable characteristics, our skin color, our religion, what we look like. There's like, that's not really what's important. And like, once you're able to spend time with people, you see more of their humanity, whether they be a cop or someone who's from another world in whatever capacity that may be.
Yeah, exactly. And that, on the flip side of it, there's also shitty people out there, and
right?
People that are cops or union workers or private sector where it doesn't matter. It's just, there's good people, there's bad people. Good people get certain jobs, bad people get certain jobs. It was never like, there was never a big discussion about the merits of their job or what they did and stuff like that. So I was never really too concerned about that. And even to this day, like, you know, they go to their police functions, their reunions, and my father was military too, so he goes to those reunions and stuff, and it's all status quo. It's not like, you know, what we see on the news with like people throwing Molotov cocktails at cop cars and stuff, especially out here on Long Island. Like even nowadays, it's nothing like that.
Oh yeah, I got you. What about where were we headed junior, senior year of high school? Thinking our future would, you know, college, working. Where were we going?
I had no idea. So junior and senior year, I started taking law classes. So in junior year, I did personal and business law, and then in senior year, I did one for college credit, commercial law. And I had the same teacher both years, Miss Eisen. She was amazing. I loved that teacher. I was actually just talking to her on one of my Facebook posts yesterday. But yeah, no, she was fantastic, very formidable. She was also more conservative leaning, and I was more conservative leaning at the time. So I was like, you know, we built that bond and relationship over like, because that was also what, around the Trump era, 2016, 2017. So we would talk about Trump and politics and whatever. But I was more geared into, at that point, becoming a lawyer because I felt like I, you know, had the brains to do it, and it's a good paying job and all of that. So I was like more getting geared up to go to college and stuff for pre-law. But at the same time, I was like, I don't really want to go to college. It's a waste of money. It's whatever. Like all the things that people say nowadays, I was thinking back then, and I'm like, it's just, it doesn't seem worth my time or my energy, but also there's no other path for me right now unless I want to go do something random. But I ended up doing that anyway. Because then after that, I went to LIU for college, LIU Post. And then I only did one semester there. I played baseball. I got a partial scholarship for baseball there. But then it sort of went sideways. Like a month after we got there, they called everybody onto, like, we were having practice or something. They're getting ready for practice. And they said, hey, team meeting, just to let you know, they're planning to merge. So there's two schools. There's LIU Post and LIU Brooklyn. And I think they have some smaller schools like LIU Grant or something. But I think they have a Riverhead campus. Anyway, but we were the two programs. So LIU Post was Division II, and I was on their JV team. And then LIU Brooklyn was Division I. So they called this meeting. They said, hey, listen, guys, they're going to go in there. They're going to talk a big game about this. You guys are screwed. And this was a month after I got there. And I'm like, okay. And they told us that we were merging and becoming one Division I program. So the head coach from Brooklyn took over and basically put most of his guys on the team. And being JV on Division II, I was like the bottom tier of the bottom tier. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to play baseball. I can keep my scholarship and stay here and go to school, but I also didn't really like some of the aspects of the school, like dorming there. Even though I, live on the island, it's a heavy commute every day, but I dormed there for a while, ended up stop dorming like halfway through the semester, and then ended up getting out by like December. I finished my one semester, and that was it.
And then where do we go from there?
I was actually looking at one point when I knew I was on my way out, probably like October of 2018. I started thinking like, hey, I could do a like go into the military. Like because my dad was former Army, so I was like, I don't want to become a Marine. I don't want to really do Army. Navy. Actually, the funniest part of this is me and my father would talk about it, me going into the military. And then I talked to my uncle at one point, and he's like, yeah, no, in the Navy and boot camp, they were asking us how we want our eggs cooked and all this stuff. And I, being a little spoiled kid, I was like, oh, I want to be asked how my eggs are cooked and not just get slop on a plate. So I think I'll go Navy. started gearing up for that a little bit.
Was he messing? He was messing with you or no?
No, he was serious. No, in boot camp in the Navy, they would ask him how they like their eggs cooked, and in the Army or any other branch, they just give you the slop. So I was like, that seems like a little bit more my speed. And that ended up not happening because I realized, like, I'm not going in for the right reasons. I don't have that drive, that motivation that a lot of people in the military have. And I just knew I wanted to put my effort, what I want to do in life, into something that I actually care about and want to do. But then after that, I forgot where I was working at the time. I think maybe Kohl's. And I was just doing that part-time, or I think maybe full-time at that point. But my father ended up saying, like, hey, you should look into, I was sitting at the kitchen table one day and he goes, hey, have you ever thought about becoming a pilot? And I was like, maybe. I mean, that sounds interesting. Sounds like it could be fun. So I ended up talking about it for a little bit, and then signed up for my first lesson in, I think it was July of 2019. So I went up in the helicopter. They gave me the controls. I flew it for a little bit. And when I came back down, I was like, yeah, no, this is fun. I want to do this. This is what I want to do for a living now. I want to become a pilot. So I started going to school for that for like a year and a half or so.
Wow.
And that still didn't end up becoming my career. So I've tried a bunch of things. I wanted to be a baseball player for a while. I wanted to become a lawyer. I wanted to become a pilot. Wanted to go into the military for a short time, and all of it ended up falling through. And now I just work in politics. So
why? We'll get into all of it. But why did your dad think being a pilot would be a good thing for you? Besides, like, the financial aspect, why did you think it would be a good path for you, and why ultimately did that not work out, I guess?
Well, it was working out until the politics came along. So it was, I was getting into it. I was doing it like college. So I would do Monday through Thursday. I would do 2 flights on Monday, Wednesday, and then ground school, like learning the ins and outs of everything on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I did that for about a year, maybe a little bit more. Because then in October, and they stayed open throughout COVID. So I started in 2019, hit 2020, COVID all happened, but the school was still open. I just wore the mask while we were in there. And, after a few months, my instructor was like, I don't really care about this anymore. And I was like, I don't either. So we just took off the mask. But I would do the ground school, the flight school, and then I ended up getting my private pilot's license. So I'm a licensed pilot now, not just a student, in October of 2020. And then from there went on to try to get my not CFII, my instrument rating. So basically, so I can fly when it's shitty weather out and stuff like that. I did that for a few months, and then the instructor that was teaching that got a new gig up in Boston. So he ended up leaving, and I was like, okay, well, I can't really do instrument right now. Let me go for my commercial, build up my flight hours, and then I'll get the instrument rating on top of that. And I went to school, kept going for my commercial, and I'm still, even right now, I think about 17 hours away from it. But I got a call one day from Young Americans for Liberty saying, hey, you want to go on a campaign to New Hampshire and, go knock doors up there? And I was like, you guys have asked me to go to a bunch of different states, Ohio or Maine or all these other ones. New Hampshire, that's close. So I'll do it. And it's only a 3-week campaign. So even if I hate it, I'm only there for 3 weeks. And then that's sort of what led to me getting away from the helicopter and getting more into politics.
I got you. Interesting. It just sounds like to me, I mean, maybe I'm mistaken, but it sounds like it's almost like on hold or to be continued, and the flying is still a thing that's
I do still want to finish it. I want to finish the commercial at least, so I have that under my belt. Obviously right now I can still like go to the school, do my hour or so of like refresher, and then take up my friends or my family or whoever I want to bring up with me and just have them along as a passenger. But I do want to complete the commercial at some point. It's just finding the time now to actually sit down, do it, get back into the books of it, and kind of relearning everything, and then going to take the test and all that sort of stuff. So I just need to find the time to do it.
So airplanes and helicopters.
Just helicopters.
Oh, just helicopters.
Yeah, there is in the FAA. You're able to take certain amount of hours from your helicopter experiences and transfer it to fixed wing to the planes, and you can do the same vice versa. But I'd rather just stick with the helicopters because offshore rigging, they make like $300,000 a year or something like that. So I would not be opposed if politics never worked out at some point. That could be always a good money making job. So we'll
taking celebrities from the Hamptons to Manhattan.
That was the other thing. Yeah,
back and forth. Is that what we're?
This is the perfect spot for it. Everybody's going from Hamptons to New York City every week, so that would be a good one too.
Yeah, for yourself too. Skip over the Long Island Expressway. The traffic.
Oh, the LIE, the bane of my existence.
not just you, from what I gather and remember and know, of course. What the hell I was going to ask you? Oh yeah, what does it feel like to fly an airplane and control an airplane for you?
Well, the helicopter is like
a helicopter. That's right.
Helicopter. It's weird because you have the collective that brings you up and down. You have the pedals on your feet, so it's like a full body thing that you're doing. You have the cyclic in your hand. You're moving which way. The pedals keep you aligned.
That sounds very mechanical for something flying in the air.
Yeah, it's you put a lot of stress on your body doing it because you're all like tensed up. Even if you don't notice that you kind of are, and like it takes a toll, and that's why we got to keep getting the medicals and whatever to make sure that we're still in shape to do all of that. But it's fun. Like that's at the end of the day. Like you take the doors off of the helicopter. You can do like basically 90-degree banks, be looking down right at the ground. It's a lot of fun.
It sounds like you Fred Flintstone in the air, pedaling your feet or something, like keeping it in the air.
Yeah, kind of a little bit like that.
Wild. How did you? And what was the impetus, I guess, if I don't know if it was one thing or an evolution or what that got, or COVID or the Trump, it could be anything that I'm guessing got you red pilled or whatever to some degree. But what led you into like politics and Young Americans for Liberty?
Yeah, so actually that's funny. That goes back to LIU. But in 2016 or 2015, 2016, Trump was running. I was watching the debates with my dad, and they've always been like talking about politics, never involved or activists or anything like that, especially because of their job. But they would shit on Obama all the time. Oh, the Obamacare and this and that and whatever. And I would just be in the background of those conversations, sort of just funneling it into my head. And then they were obviously Republicans.
Fox News boomer typical Fox News Long Island boomer conservatives. Not wrong about a lot of things, but that's I got you.
Sean Hannity types, yeah. Like I remember sitting down with my dad, like nights where I'm going to school in the morning or whatever. Back when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever it was. And I'd be like, oh, can I stay up with you that extra hour? And I'll sit here and watch Hannity with you. And we would do that. But that was like the childhood formulation of it in me with my parents and everything and the Fox News and all that. Then Trump happened. And that's when I started getting like more into it. And I was always like one of those edgy kids, so I would show up to high school with like my Donald Trump shirt on.
Wow.
Yeah, there was one time where I was wearing the Trump shirt with like a MAGA hat and my flannel jeans and boots, and just looking like a middle of the country guy and whatever. But I had these girls like, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. It's like, funny. But that's sort of what got me sparked or kind of interested in politics, because I'm like, why is it so divisive? Like, what are the actual perspectives of people? And I always had that formulation of Republicans, limited government, guns, freedom, blah, 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 Democrats for more government, this, that, whatever. Like, I had that very cookie cutter, like, you're one way or the other, and that's it. And throughout my time, I've obviously learned that's not the case, that there's a lot of nuance within it. But leading into college, or high school, I was saying me and my law teacher would talk about it and stuff. So it was always there. It was one of those things where, like, looking back on it, I never knew what I truly wanted to do for a living, but it was always in the background somewhere. And then I got to college, and actually on move-in day, me and my parents were bringing all this stuff into my dorm room, and some kid came up to me, Anand Venigala, I still remember his name, and he goes, hey, I have this political club, do you want to sign up for it? And I was like, yeah, I'm interested in politics. At that time, I decided that I was going for a major in political science with a minor in journalism. So I was like, politically driven. I was interested in that. And I was like, yeah, no, I'll sign up for your club. And it was Young Americans for Liberty. So they had me on their list. I went to a few of the meetings, whatever, but obviously I left, but they were still emailing me, texting me, hey, we got this going on, that going on. Like, you want to do this or that, or go on this campaign? And I sort of just always blew it off. And that's when, in 2021 at that point, that they were like, hey, come to New Hampshire. And I was like, all right. So I went there, knocked doors for 3 weeks. I was with a team of 3, at one point 4 other guys, and then he left pretty quickly. But yeah, no, it was fun. We went to Boston, enjoyed the day there a few times. Went up to Maine at some point. Like, we were just bouncing around. It was fun. Like, being on my own. It was the first time that I was like living outside of my house with my parents. So I'm like on my own. I feel independent now, and it's pretty cool. And at that point, I was a libertarian. Like, I had joined the Libertarian Party in 2019 after seeing a lot of stuff that Trump did that I didn't like during his term. So shifting my views throughout all of that time, became more libertarian, worked for Young Americans for Liberty. And then for the rest of the year after that, I came back and was working with the New York Libertarian Party. So I was there, one of the state committee members, went up to Albany for one of their things, Syracuse for their convention. And then in 2022, that's when it really like launched off with me getting heavily involved.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing that journey. It's interesting. So you were doing a lot of just like campaigning. It sounds like, for Republican or Libertarian candidates, or both.
They were Republican candidates, but they were libertarians in the Republican Party, pro-gun all the way.
Yeah, liberty-minded Republicans.
Yeah. So knocking doors for them. And then in 2022 is when I got a text from my field director back in New Hampshire, and he was like, hey, we're doing one down here in Virginia Beach. This time it's not for a candidate, it's for school choice. We're trying to get school choice passed. So I was like, how long is it? And he said 2 months. So I was like, ugh, dude, like, if I'm doing that, I'm doing it. Actually, I forgot about something. Before that was in February, I think, of 2022. In 2021, in December, I got invited by Young Americans for Liberty to go down to their national office in Austin and do a field director training. They were trying to see who they wanted to be the new field directors. So they said, hey, come down, we'll train you up and see how you do. So I did that, and then he ended up getting me back on the campaign, knocking doors, and that's really when it started, because then after that I was more in connection with the national staff over at the PAC and at their nonprofit. So talking to them about, I want to, if I'm doing this, I want to progress. I don't want to just knock doors. I want to be a field director. I want to work my way up. And then after badgering them for a little bit, lack of a better term, I had Mike Anderson call me and he said, hey, we'll give you the field director spot. Like, we got a campaign out in Kentucky. We need you there in 12 hours. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was 8:00 at night. This was in April of 2022. After I got done with Virginia Beach, that was a fun experience. But he calls me. He's like, yeah, we need you there in 12 hours, 8:00 at night. And I'm like, all right, I'll be there. So I drove 12 hours straight through to Kentucky overnight and got there by 8:00 in the morning. I'm surprised I didn't fall asleep during the drive. But then I got there, got my team all set up, and they started me off with a bang because I was one person in charge of 3 different state house races, Republican primaries. So did that, and we ended up winning all 3. So they were like,
wow,
oh, great, awesome. Fantastic. And moved me on to Georgia after that, and then up to Illinois. And that's when I eventually got the call from Young Americans for Liberty there, because I was working for the PAC at that time. So then their other organization, YAL, called me and they said, hey, we see that you have half a brain on your shoulders. Would you like a position with us? And I was like, yeah, it's better benefits, full time, all of that sort of stuff that I was looking for. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'll do it. And that was the deputy regional director position with their campus side. So like basically the guy that came up to me when I was on college, his boss is what I ended up becoming. So I was like, yeah, pretty cool. I'll do that.
And where was that job based out of, or is that job?
All the way that it works is all of the regional directors live and work in the national office in Austin, but I was their deputy regional director. So they brought me down to Austin. I was there after Illinois because I literally left the campaign afterwards and left for Austin, drove down there, stayed there for about a month while we were recruiting and everything for our annual convention, which is Revolution. It's in Orlando, Florida every year. They're calling it YAL National Convention this year, but same thing, different name. And we just were hitting the phone lines, calling people, calling college students. Hey, we're having this convention, get down there. Eventually, a month later, went to that convention, did everything there, worked it, and then I came back up to New York. So I got to have Long Island again as my home base, but they sent me up to Boston for 2 weeks and working with college kids, getting signups, getting them to create chapters on their campuses and stuff, and then it just sort of snowballed into the Northeast Regional Director saying that, hey, I'm taking a marketing position now and we need a new Northeast person. So would you like to become the Northeast Regional Director? And I'm like, hell yeah, I would. So that's when I eventually moved to Austin last year.
Oh, so wait, so you're in Austin? Right, where
No, I was living in Austin. So I don't work for them anymore. I work for National Association for Gun Rights. That's my full-time job besides Save Long Island, but they called me and they were like, hey, we're moving her over. So they put me through the interview. I did good. And this was September of 2022, actually. So from September until August of last year, I lived there. So literally from January to March doing the school choice, Virginia, just being a door knocker, bottom rung of the organization, to then becoming a field director, becoming a deputy regional director, and then becoming a regional director, all between April and September of that year. So that was pretty fun, exciting, exhilarating, stressful, and everything else in between.
Who are some of your favorite people to either work for or with during your time with this organization, or even just like libertarian or political or any type of figures that you were kind of like looking up to in this world? Like, within, I guess the last few years, especially.
I mean, I always knew of Ron Paul. I always liked Ron Paul, but then after working with Young Americans for Liberty, because they, from 2008 to 2012, were students for Ron Paul, and then they eventually became Young Americans for Liberty. So I was, looking up to Ron Paul. I also really like Larry Sharp. Spike Cohen is another one of that he can do no wrong in my eyes. He's a fantastic person. But those were sort of my top political people. Obviously, Milton Friedman, Frederick Hayek, Murray Rothbard. Like, I read some of them too, so I sort of looked up or liked them. Ron Paul was obviously that's when I started doing looking at a lot of videos and seeing what he was saying and all that sort of stuff and becoming a Ron Pauler. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is where it's at.
Right. Yeah. It's almost, I keep thinking, and I had this thought a few times during our conversation. It's like, sounds like you grew up with fairly standard, typical conservative Republicans parents. But then it's like, once you get all that it takes to become a libertarian, I think, at least for me, for you, I don't know, it just seems so simple and obvious. Like, once you're exposed to the ideas and you watch a few Ron Paul videos, you read a few books, you see the media and these politicians exposing themselves time after time, decade after decade, where you realize the whole thing is just, bullshit. No one cares about your freedom and your liberty, really, except for Ron Paul and others too. But
a few others. I mean,
of course,
the ones that I'll put up there are like Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, Chip Roy to some extent. There's a few others, Andrew Clyde, Eli Crane. There's a few good people in there, but that's the thing is I can only name 6 out of the 400 or so that are running our government now, on top of the federal bureaucrats, which is where a lot of my hatred goes towards. But yeah, no, it was like I said, back in the day, more standard Republican, I believe that they believe all this and they're not all the same. And that's when I started figuring it out. But that's the thing too, is a lot of Republicans hold, just general Republicans hold a lot of the views that libertarians do. It's just that, one, they don't get into the political philosophy of it and the reading the books and watching the videos and listening to what the sustenance of what these candidates have to say. And they don't really know. But at the same time, as long as you do read a few books, watch a few videos, you're like, oh, okay, this is starting to make a little bit more sense to me now. And, there's a lot of bad actors within the Republican Party. So that's what I do now, is holding them accountable.
Yeah, let's segue me into your work with Save Long Island and more focused on gun rights and your career. How did we get there and continue on your journey?
Yeah. So I worked for YAL for a while, ended up, my grandfather wasn't doing too well, and then I actually met a girl back here when I was home visiting at one point. So on top of cost of living in Austin isn't the best. So I had a couple push factors away from Austin by, what was that, middle of the summer last year. And pull factors for me to come back home here. So I'm like, you know what? I should probably start making this move. I still want to work in politics. I still love YAL to this day. Everything that they do, I stand by 100%. They are a fantastic organization. I have no animosity or bad blood toward them. They are fantastic. But it was just my personal thing of I need to get back home. And at that point, I was doing some contracting work on the side, just, doing some recruiting for the LP. And one of my buddies from YAL actually ended up getting a job with NAGR, National Association for Gun Rights subsidiary, which is their Colorado group, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. And he, knew the president of the organization. He knew all the higher ups. And I was telling him hey, I'm not really into this contract and stuff. It's the problems with it, whatever. And he said, well, let me talk to a couple people. So I said, okay. And he got me on the phone with one of the guys, this guy Austin, and ended up doing an interview. I was helping him actually move from Indiana to Colorado at that time. I'm sitting in his empty Indiana apartment doing my interview for the organization that he works for, and I'm like, it kind of came full circle. I met this kid at Yale, and then got a good friendship with him, and now he's helping me get this job. And Yale and NAGR, they work together to some extent. I still work with Yao in some capacity. But yeah, it was just, he was in there. They knew him. They liked him. They took his recommendation on me pretty seriously, got me through the interview. And then they ended up saying, well, we need somebody for the Northeast. We got gun battles coming up in New Hampshire and Maine. So we're going to need somebody to fight those defensive fights. And they picked me for it. So they were actually looking at me for Pennsylvania at one point, but then decided that they had a kid that lived in Pennsylvania, so they hired him to do Pennsylvania, and then I'm their Northeast guy, so I deal with New York, New Jersey, and everything up on New England. So kind of worked out. It's weird. Things just seem to have worked out. And I'm grateful for it. I'm happy about it. But it's a little bit of luck mixed with presenting myself well and doing my work well and stuff like that got me to where I am now. So now I have a big boy job and fighting off communists in the Northeast.
Nice, very cool. It sounds like, and congrats on the journey and success and being happy with all of it. What the hell I was gonna ask? I lost my train of thought there. But what about Save Long Island?
Yeah, so Save Long Island was always, since working with Yale and like getting involved with them, and moving down to Austin and being in the office and learning the political tactics that we use, how we use different types of mediums to make the change that we do, and contacting constituents and voters and stuff like that, and getting them involved. It was like, I love Long Island. Long Island is my home. At this point I had moved back and everything, and I'm like, I love this place, and I don't want to see it be destroyed by what goes up on in Albany and in New York City and stuff, and how they have a stranglehold in the state. And I'm like, what if I kind of replicated what National Association for Gun Rights does and what YAL does and all these other organizations, Student for Life and a few others, they all use the same base models to do what they do. And why don't I do that on the county level in New York, in Suffolk County and Nassau County? So that's when I sort of started getting the idea to, let's build something of my own. And I've always had that sort of entrepreneurial mindset. I want to eventually, at some point, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, work for myself and own my own thing. So it was a combination of, I love the place and the people here. Sometimes people can be hard to deal with, but I love them. It's a love-hate relationship out here because everybody's so headstrong. But, I'm a product of that as well. And then, the entrepreneurial side, as well as the political involvement, and knowing that there's so much corruption within local governments, especially here. I mean, hell, I live in Brookhaven town. The nickname for it is Crookhaven because of how corrupt it is. So it's so bad. So I'm just like, you know what? Let me try. And that's really what this is right now. Save Long Island is, I'm giving it a shot. And, the thing is, political climates are different in a lot of places. Long Island compared to Northern Kentucky, they're both Republican, but they're two completely different types of Republicans, like I was saying about the nuance in it. And, there's a lot of neoconservatism out here versus the liberty conservatism in Northern Kentucky. So it's like, it's all giving it a shot and seeing where it goes, and just taking what I've learned from these other organizations and just replicating it here on the smaller level. Because at the end of the day, New York is very hard to crack with, having Democrat supermajorities and Democrat governor that is probably going to be Queen Kathy Hochul for the rest of her life. So it just spawned into, let me work on the county level and fight back. And I want to fight back and, lower taxes. I looked a lot into, behind me here, like the red light camera issue. That was a main thing that we were fighting. And I feel like we were a force multiplier in that fight to push it over the finish line and make sure that we didn't get it reauthorized. So first win on the books, get rid of the cameras. And we're going one step further now at the county level to get them banned outright so that they can't ever come back, because it's an election year. They knew that there was a lot of public backlash. I mean, I had, a lot of petition signatures for it and people calling up the state senators, telling them not to take up the bill. So even though it's state level, we were still able to make stuff work. And you just sort of hit the pressure points that you need to, and things happen.
Aren't they more unsafe, these lights, because people they react differently when the light goes off? They don't react in a normal driving way
It goes so much deeper than that. It's the revenue aspect of it. I mean, I remember talking to one legislator, and he was saying how, I like them in certain areas and, certain because of car accidents and whatever. And, it's a good revenue generator for the county, he told me. And that's when I'm like, yeah, dude, you don't care about safety. You only care about getting the revenue.
Yep.
So that was a major red flag. That was something I knew a while ago, that all safety is it's disguised as safety. Any safety measures they take to steal money from us. So that sort of solidified it for me that it was, not about safety. Even the people that want them don't want them for safety. They want them for the money. And everybody, and then you expose them on that and they go, well, no, it's about the safety and we need them at the corners because of the data and this and that. End of the day, they ended up not reauthorizing the contract. The day after, they all start going, where are we going to get the $8 million from? Oh, so you didn't care about car accidents. If that's the first question out of your mouth is where are we going to get the 8 million? So it ties into that. And this is a little off of that, but it still kind of applies because it's cameras. One thing that we have out here, I don't know if you guys do in California, but school bus cameras. I did a little bit more research into those and found some interesting stuff that, obviously a lot of these companies, they donate to a lot of Democrats. And, I was looking up their CEO, the people that were higher ups in their organization. It's called Bus Patrol America, LLC. And they're the ones that basically contract out these cameras for the school buses. So then after doing some more research, there was actually a story on Newsday. It was our Newsday or News 12. I think it was Newsday. But it went into the corruption behind the school bus cameras, and that, if you ask anybody about school bus cameras, they're like, yeah, well, I don't like getting the tickets when I'm driving on the highway, but they're good in residential areas. It goes so much deeper than any sort of safety aspect of them, to the point where the contract that our county had with the company right before our former county executive left office in November of last year, illegally changed the contract without approval from the legislature. So bypassed any sort of government means of checks and balances to change the contract, to take out the clause in the contract where we can terminate the contract. So we're pretty much stuck with it for the next 5 years, no matter what, until it comes up for reauthorization. And then, to make matters worse, I'm not going to say half, but a good majority of people that worked for that county executive after they left office in January went to work for Bus Patrol America, LLC. So they literally embedded themselves in the contract or in the county illegally by changing the contract, and then went to go work for the company to profit off of people that are, getting $250 fines for each ticket.
Wow.
Yeah. So when people say, well, I want them in certain areas or in the residential neighborhoods, I bring that up and they change their tune pretty quickly.
Yeah, so evil, so terrible, and this is probably going on everywhere, like
Oh, yeah.
stuff like this. So much corruption. I remember what I was going to ask or comment on like 10 minutes ago, and you
Yeah.
basically kind of touched on it a little bit. Basically, I was going to mention the overlap between your time at Young Americans for Liberty and working for the gun organization, and even with Save Long Island. Like, what is some of like the like overlap in terms of actual tasks? Is it you do a lot? It sounds like you do a lot of campaigning. You're working on campaigning, whether it's for issues or for people. Is that what a lot of the time is spent? Education or raising money, or what is the overlap in tasks?
It's a little bit of all of it. I mean, I even just with the short time that I've been doing Save Long Island since this past September, I've done door knocking, I've done fundraising, I've done phone calls, I've done emails. To all of that stuff is fun. The main bulk of everything that I do, whether it was with YAL, whether it's with NAGR, whether it's with Save Long Island, 80% of my day, I'm looking at spreadsheets. That's really what politics is. You look at spreadsheets, you look at data, you look at numbers, and then you use that to basically craft the program that you want to run. If you're sending mail out to certain districts or getting door knockers in or flooding a senator's office with phone calls, like you sort of tie all that together using that data that you pull, work it out in a certain way where you figure out, politics is all a numbers game. It's, you need 50% plus one to win. In actuality, you only need 3% plus one to win. We don't have enough time to get into every single thing or the weeds of that because I could spend 6 hours on the real nature of politics, as we call it. But yeah, no. And like, it's a lot of back end work. Like, for example, I'm doing a lot of the survey stuff for the gun rights organization now. So getting candidates' addresses, getting the surveys made up, sending them out, like tailoring them to whatever state they're in, looking at their gun laws and seeing what we could go for next session, what we can't go for, what states we can play in, stuff like that. And it's the same thing out here. Like, it's just at the smaller level. Okay, what county legislative races do we want to get involved in? Well, this is a heavily Republican district. Can we get a candidate against this person, primary them? Can we get a Republican against a Democrat in this swing district? And it all just goes into the numbers. Like, that's most of my day is just looking at numbers and spreadsheets.
That makes sense. Analyzing data to determine what's the best way to move forward and allocate time, energy, and resources.
Yeah,
Is that essentially the name of the game?
And on the front end, it's like, because you do all that back end work, and I obviously got to do all the other stuff on top of that of making sure that I'm legally compliant with tax law and stuff like that for my own organization. And New York tax law is so fun, so much fun. I love New York State Tax and Finance Department. They're my favorite people. But yeah, at the end of the day, really what you can boil this all down to is lobbying. That's what we do, is lobbying. But we're not lobbying for Lockheed Martin or Raytheon or one of the military industrial complexes or Bus Patrol America LLC or the Red Light Camera Company or anything. We're lobbying for the grassroots. We're lobbying for liberty. We're lobbying for the people that we're trying to take care of and the people that just want to be left the hell alone by the government. And at the end of the day, you find the people who are very pro-gun or very anti-camera and mass surveillance, and you get them on your side through the petitions, through everything else. You get their contact info. As much as, people hate saying, like, oh, I got your contact info. Like, yeah, I got your contact info, and like, but now I can keep you informed and get you involved and start, you're part of the change, because it doesn't matter what the Police Benevolence Association says or the camera companies or any of these other environmental lobbyists or whoever. It boils down to, are you going to get votes? Are you going to get reelected? 3 things that politicians want to do are get elected, get reelected, and get elected to higher office. That's all that they want to do, is just climb the ladder. So you use that and their natural tendencies to get afraid if their constituents backlash against them and stuff like that. And you just make it work. And, that's why, if I drop off 20 petition signatures and get 5 phone calls into an office, it's not going to do much. But also if I'm able to organize, 1,000 people to start calling up and targeting them, then they get the message pretty quickly and they start freaking out. So, and then they go, oh, well, I'm not going to pick up the red light camera bill. I'm very against that. No, you're not, but your constituents are, and you're listening to them now because I've coordinated the attack on you.
Very cool. I appreciate all that work. That sounds like tireless work, and I appreciate that and respect and admire the passion too. I think I caught a couple of videos of you that you posted when you were just like, what did you go to, like some city council meetings? And
that's the county legislature meetings. Yeah.
Right. Tell me about what that's like to go right into the belly of the beast, so to speak, in some way regard of like local politics. Like, are you I mean, obviously you're quite comfortable public speaking and all that, but what's that like to go yell at the government to its face?
It's fun. It actually kind of worked out in a good way for me, where over the past few months, like early this year, I was up in Maine. I testified in Maine and was talking to the legislators there, and state legislators, and then New Hampshire, same sort of thing. So then when I was doing Save Long Island and got down to the county level, whether it's good or bad to say, like I don't hold those people in the same regard. First of all, I don't hold politicians in any sort of regard. Politicians are tools, not people. You use them, abuse them for what you want out of them, and then you get them out of office when they start giving you backlash. But at the same time, I went in there and I'm like, this is my county. This is what I care about. And it's not just me. I'm not speaking for me. I'm speaking. And when you listen to the videos, I started off with, my name is Angelo Veltri, and I'm here on behalf of the members and supporters of Save Long Island. I'm not speaking for me. Yes, I do believe in all of this stuff, but I'm speaking on behalf of the thousands of people that have signed the petition, the thousands of people that want us to change the way that things are functioning out here, because they're obviously not working in favor of the people. So when I go there, I know that I had one of the legislators there. I called him out. The one that I told you where he said that the cameras were a good revenue generator. He came around after I got done with that testimony, and I called him out on it. And he started yelling at me. And he goes, "What? I didn't say, you're a lying piece of shit." And he said it in front of everybody in the crowd. But that's the thing. All those people there are lobbyists. Nobody from the general public goes to these meetings. Until last time, where I brought down 20 people with me, and we all got up there and spoke and told them to ban red light cameras. So then once you start getting that show of force and all those people down there, it's not just me anymore. I had a bunch of people in the crowd wearing this pin, ban red light cameras pin, and everybody just had it on there, and you can see it in the video. Like, there's people sitting there with it, and it's a show of force. And at this point, and especially after the last meeting, they know that we're not going anywhere. Like, you're going to have to deal with us. And next time it's going to be 40 people down at that meeting, and then 60. And then if you want it to stop, then just ban the red light cameras. So
strength in numbers.
Exactly. No, that's all it is. Because, people get told all the time, call your rep, tell them this, tell them that. Nobody does it. But when you do it in a coordinated fashion, because if somebody gets, 5 phone calls one day, 10 the next day, 10 the following day, they're going to be like, all right, whatever, people are calling about this. But then when they get blasted with 100 or 200 in a day, or even in a few hours, they're like, oh, people are catching wind of this. People are paying attention. I need to cover my ass now. So it's all about just, taking what people care about and, what they believe in, and filtering that through to the people that are the decision makers, which are the county legislators, and then eventually on to the county executive, the new one, Ed Romaine.
I feel like I'm learning a lot just for myself and for my own professional and just my approach to certain things in my life, just from this conversation about human psychology and about politics that transcends even politics, if that makes sense. Like this has been enlightening for me. I know I've taken up a lot of your time already. Anything else you think we need to cover, or you wanted to talk about, or whatnot about any of the things we've discussed?
No, I mean, that's my life. I'm unapologetically a libertarian. I love my country, hate my government. And, I want to do what's right by people, because at the end of the day, if nobody does the work, if nobody's doing what I'm doing, there is no other organization on Long Island doing what we're doing. So if I'm not here, if we're not making noise and, kicking up dust and doing what we need to, then nobody's going to do it. And the corruption is just going to keep continuing. So at the end of the day, if you guys made it this far in this video, like, start your own county organizations, your own state organizations. Like, if you're entrepreneurial minded, like, do it, just do it. And that was one of my fears getting into it too. This is something I didn't talk about. Like, one of my fears was like, what if I fail? Like, what if I screw up? What if I, start a business and whatever, and then I get hit with massive fines and whatever? You can't worry about that. You just got to understand where you're at, be smart about it. Don't obviously do anything illegal, but like, push the barrier and just keep fighting for what you believe in. Because at the end of the day, if you don't fight for what you believe in, the person next to you is not fighting for what they believe in. And if you don't fight for what you believe in, then you're never going to get any results that you actually care about. So don't let the fear stifle you. Just go for it. Like, just take the leap and do it. And you'll be much happier 6 months down the line, a year down the line, than if you didn't start anything at all and you just have those as ideas in your head. So take the action and do it. And, I'm always available to anybody that wants to talk or learn more, or like even you. Like, I would love to show you at some point, maybe later this week or next week, like how all of this stuff actually works, because I have a pretty nice presentation set up on it. And I just want to help people. And fighting for liberty is what we need in this country. That's what it was founded on, and we're going to return to it come hell or high water.
Oh man, that's great. You're firing up the troops, and you're doing great work and important work and appreciated work, and it's great. It's and noble. I don't know if I said that. Certainly a noble fight, because it's definitely an uphill battle to bring more freedom and liberty into this world where it seems like every force seems to be working unnaturally against that. What about ghosts and aliens? Have you had any personal experiences with either? Do we believe in those things? UFOs?
I believe, I'll say I believe in aliens. I believe in, and I take this kind of from my mother, I believe in spirits, not ghosts. I believe in, energy. That's like, I'm this far right guy, but then like I also believe in like holistic care and energy and stuff like that. So I believe in energies and spirits and stuff like that. Aliens are 100% real. Like, there's no getting around it. You just go on one of those. If you don't believe in aliens, go on one of those videos, and just where it expands out and goes from like, oh, here you are on Earth, to like, here's Earth, to here's the sun, here's the galaxy, here's the universe. There's something out there. We're not the only ones.
Probably not. But you haven't had experience. But you haven't had experience personally.
Actually, no, that's horrible. Okay, so this was when I was with Yao. I think it was a year or so ago. We were in Tampa for the Turning Point USA conference. Got done one night, went to the beach in, Western Florida, and just laying out there, hanging out for the night, a couple of us, and I'm laying away from everybody on one of the lifeguard chairs. And I'm looking up, just looking at the stars, and I see this red light start going across the sky, and I'm just looking up at it as it's flying across the sky. Within a second, I'm watching it for a few seconds, and then it just stops on a dime and starts coming back the way that it was coming. And I'm like, okay, that's not a plane. That's not a helicopter. Like, nothing does that. And then it got weirder because as it's coming back, it started doing like these swirls in the air and just kept moving more and more west, doing these swirls, and then just shot off. And I'm calling over to everybody. I'm like trying to keep my eye focused while I'm like, everybody come here, look at this, look at this. And by the time they got there, it flew off. And now I'm the crazy guy that night that saw a UFO.
Yeah. But people do have very similar stories about even like, I don't know, seeing military planes sometimes like chase some of these types of things. There's some weird shit going on.
That's the thing. It was night. It was only a red light that I saw. Could I be mistaken? Possibly. I believe that was a UFO.
It sounds like it to me.
Yeah.
I believe it. Too many people have had stories just on this podcast alone to make me think, even if, you know, some small percentage of them are true. That's
Do more people have ghost stories or alien stories on your podcast?
It's actually, I would say it's pretty balanced, because I do try to ask everyone that, because those are always fun questions to ask people at the end or whatever. I'd say it's pretty balanced actually. People have the ghost ones tend to be more vivid and more goosebumpy. The aliens ones tend to be more, I guess what you're describing,
like
maybe
I saw something,
UFOs or something that, like that kind of thing. But other people are like drawers are opening by themselves, knocks are knocking on doors, and things being moved around, and like there's some weird things like people describing that makes the hair on your arms stand up. But thank you so much for the time and sharing the stories, and it's inspiring. I feel like I need to do more and can do more to make this world even a slightly better place. Why don't you tell people where they can find you, follow you, support you, plug whatever you want? I'll give you the floor to do all those things.
Yeah, so for Save Long Island, go to savelongisland.org. Very simple. We're on Twitter and or X and Instagram at SaveLongIsland_. My personal Twitter, where I do a lot of my commentary, making fun of Joe Biden and a few other things. That's at Liberty Angelo. And then yeah, I think that's really about it. Oh, and also go sign up to become a National Association for Gun Rights member. If you're a gun guy, don't listen to the NRA. The NRA stands for Negotiating Rights Away. If you want a real, true gun rights organization that's going to stand up for every last bit, down to your bump stocks, down to your force reset triggers and everything else, go to gunrights.org and sign up to become a member there, and also become a Save Long Island member.
2A protects 1A, from what I understand.
Oh, it does. It protects all of them.
Good stuff all around. Thank you again. I'll let you get on with the rest of your evening. I know it's getting very later and later on the East Coast, but yeah, appreciate it, and let's talk soon.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it.
Later, Angelo. Peace.
Peace.
So there you have it, episode 156 with Angelo Veltri. That was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate his time. That dude is a real go-getter, and I look forward to following him and his career. He's always doing great work. That's appreciated. Anyway, for everything about this show, of course, head to peoplewelovepodcast.com, at peoplewelovepodcast on Instagram. I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter, adamchoit.com for everything else. But I think that's about all I got. I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you as always. And let's talk soon. Peace.